We officially have our first gender swap, kind of. Dracula's daughter begins right where Dracula left off, with von Helsing being hilariously frank about the murder of Count Dracula, having just driven a stake through his heart to some goofy cockney bobbies who arrest him on the spot. Meanwhile, Dracula's daughter shows up in town to dispose of her father's body and eat some street urchins, even though she wants to be good now and stop killing people for some reason. She falls in love with a local psychiatrist and friend of von Helsing, who attempts to help her with her addiction to the blood of the innocent. But she soon gives up on giving up her bloodlust and returns to Transylvania with the psychiatrist's lovely assistant and uses her as a bargaining chip to keep the good doctor as her immortal boy toy. But her jealous familiar shoots her, and then they shoot him, and then he dies, and then she dies. They're dead.
This film has a weird backstory, almost familiar to how Disney, Marvel, and Sony have a relationship with their Spider-Man characters, or Fleming and Eon's battle over the rights of Thunderball with Kevin McClory. You see, this film is not based on Bram Stoker's Dracula, but rather a potential deleted chapter or short story by Stoker titled Dracula's Guest. In that story, an untitled Englishman, which we presume is probably Jonathan Harker from Dracula, is caught up in a winter storm and ends up in an unholy village where he takes shelter in a countess's tomb. There he has an encounter with an undead beautiful woman before fleeing back out into the cold. So David O. Selznick of MGM, for historical context, he's the producer who did Gone with the Wind. He brought Alfred Hitchcock's over to the States, bought the rights to Dracula's Guest from Stoker's widow in 1933. And some believe he did it just to make a quick buck because he knew that Universal would want to make a sequel to Dracula. And of course, Universal probably didn't want another studio making a Dracula picture, i.e. competition, much like Kevin McClory and all that fiasco with the Bond franchise. So they bought the rights from Selznick with the stipulation that they would return the rights back to MGM by 1935, and then it got an extension in 1936, or they would revert back to MGM. This in turn caused a lot of other issues because one, they couldn't use characters from the original text Dracula. I can't confirm this, but I believe this is the reason why he's not Van Helsing in this one. He's Von Helsing.
Von Helsing, Professor Von Helsing?
Just change one vowel.
Yeah,
just
change a vowel. It's fine.
Can you imagine that, just arguing about that back and forth in court?
But I do also think after rewatching it a second time, I was like, maybe that wasn't 100% accurate because they do mention Renfield in this at least once. So maybe they were a little bit loose with it. I don't know.
Do they say the name Renfield, or doesn't he just...
They do. They mention Renfield by name after the fact, after they found the body.
The bodies of Count Dracula and the man Renfield.
Yeah.
I believe the cops do.
Because at first he just says...
Who is he? Poor harmless imbecile who ate spiders and flies.
The second thing about this, because of this whole rights thing, they were rushed for time to finish the script. So when they began filming, they had an unfinished script written by Dracula writer Garrett Fort. You could also make that comparison to how a lot of the Marvel films of late were rushed into shooting without a finished script. So there are some comparisons to today. This film was directed by Lambert Hillier. Limley Jr. wanted to get James Whale on board again, but it didn't time out. I honestly think the reasoning may have just been they were already rushed to try to get this thing going, and they didn't want Whale to be involved because Whale would be like, no, we got to redo this whole script.
Yeah, dude, James Whale is like Neo, just dodging all these awful scripts.
Yeah. And Whale's like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And I think Whale also probably just didn't, again, like I said prior, he probably just didn't want to do it because he's like, I'm tired of doing these monster movies. Give me something else, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
It is not me that you're interested in, but only my horror pictures.
No, but it's the horror movies you'll be remembered for.
I'm not dead yet, Mr. K.
No, I never said you were, or will be soon.
Otto Kruger plays Dr. Jeffrey Garth, our new protagonist from this film. Gloria Holden plays the titular character, and Countess Maria Zaleska. I think that's how you're saying it. Zaleska, thank you. And then we got Edward Van Sloan, returns for the fourth and final time in the Universal Monster films as Von Helsing, not Van Helsing this time, so you could say he's a completely different character. The other returning person for at least the Universal films is E.E. Clive, who returns this time around as Sergeant Wilkes. He was the burgomaster in Bride of Frankenstein, but he also played the constable in The Invisible Man. He's kind of being played for type by this point. Finally, so we don't go down a rabbit hole, because I know you and I will have this long discussion, and I really feel like this movie doesn't warrant a long discussion about this. I at least want to acknowledge this film has many lesbian overtones that were even used in the marketing of this movie when it came out, which would read stuff like, "Save the Woman of London from Dracula's Daughter." So they're very much aware, even back in the 30s, that this was a lesbian vampire movie. On top of that, they, when they were even writing the script, there was a lot of stuff that they had to get past the censors. I think the censors even were like, yo, specifically the scene where he brings the girl the night, I don't know if you want to call her a streetwalker or not, but when she brings the streetwalker home, they had to be very careful on the whole, like, taking her clothes off. There was a lot of stuff like that.
She's a potential suicide that he sees as somebody vulnerable enough to invite back for...
The river is cold and dark. I know where there is warmth and food and money.
I don't want your kind of money.
My mistress is an artist. She will pay you if you will pose for her tonight. There's nothing to fear.
It's the classic case of, you just said that maybe I would just show my shoulders and my neck, and it's like, take it off.
Do I have to?
You want to be a star, don't you? Then take it off! Yeah, that's nice.
Take more off.
You have to believe, as they're writing the script, the guy writing it is just like, yeah, this is what happened to me in Hollywood. So I'm
I've seen this happen to a lot of these vulnerable young
people,
women.
Like, yeah, exactly.
You know, the classic, you want to be a big star, don't you?
There's probably more that we could go down a rabbit hole, again, like I said, about the lesbian overtones. But I will say a lot of scholars, a lot of people say this is maybe one of the first times lesbian vampires is shown on screen. There are other books prior to this, and some people even say that this is actually more based off Camilla, another vampire book that predates Bram Stoker's novel that has lesbian vampires. But obviously, it's there, and I know you and I are going to go, yeah, it's there, but I don't know if it makes the movie better or worse.
If it was there at some point, and then the censors said, hide it a little bit, they hid it so much that just watching this movie today, it's not there.
I don't agree because I can see it, but
I wish it was. I
not
honestly
as
wish it was.
As it probably could have been.
She's about as much of a lesbian as Pussy Galore, which in the book, they say
it's blatant. Right.
It's very much in your face. Pussy Galore is a lesbian. In the movie, I don't see it.
It's a little wishy-washy.
One guy comes onto her and she rejects him because he's a big fat slob. My point being that you can hint at it all you want, but unless there's evidence, it's bleh. So with this, her first victim is a guy, her second victim is a young woman, and then at the end of the movie, like I said, she's using the lovely assistant as a bargaining chip to turn the psychiatrist man into an immortal vampire to live with her forever. If it was the reverse, where it was using the psychiatrist to bait the lovely assistant, then you'd have something.
I don't agree.
But as long as that's there, as long as her goal is to live with a man, I'm like,
well, here's
not enough
my
evidence.
Really quick. Here's my interpretation of that. The first person she kills is a man, but it's very quick. She goes at it because she has to. The scene reads like she has to do it, right? She has to feed because it's almost like a prostitute who's like has to go out and make money. That's how that scene reads to me. The second time she kills somebody, because she doesn't kill them right away, right? It's more of a temptation. It's a temptation because she's like, she even tells her familiar, it's like, no, we're painting tonight. That's what we're doing. We're painting tonight.
Tonight I paint. And I will need a model.
But then, of course, she brings this woman over, and the temptation comes over, the bloodlust, if you will, the vampirism comes over, and she does that.
Please don't come any closer.
The last instance that you're talking about, my interpretation at least, is that this story, I think, for one, I don't think they would make this movie today for this particular reason. I think what it is that she doesn't like it throughout the whole movie, and you see this. She doesn't want to be a vampire anymore, right? Like, she's like, I don't want to be a vampire. I can't be a vampire anymore.
You think this night will be like all the others, don't you? Well, you're wrong. Dracula's destroyed. His body's in ashes. The spell is broken. I can live a normal life now.
And the only thing that she sees to fix that is Garth. She sees Dr. Jeffrey Garth as the solution. He says something to her that like brings in her, she's like unleashed, or what is it?
He
says,
gives her
like,
hope.
He
gives her hope
right?
that she could break free.
So she gives her hope.
Like any disease of the mind, it can be cured. All we have to discover is what brought about the obsession in order to effect mental release.
Release?
Yes, release. Sympathetic treatment will release the human mind from any obsession.
My thinking is that, and again, the script is muddy because they didn't finish the script when they started filming this movie. They were like 3 weeks into this movie. My thinking is that they were going with the idea that either she's going to be with a man or she's going to be with a woman. Well, I don't want to be with a woman anymore because that makes me a lesbian. So I want to turn. So I'm going to be with a man forever. And then this also motivates the end of the movie with the familiar wanting to kill him because she's like, well, you promised me eternal life. Why are you giving it to this guy?
What do you want of Garth? Release? Still release?
No, I know that's impossible now. I want him.
What do you mean?
His life in exchange for hers.
His death?
No, not death. Life. Eternal life with me.
Have you forgotten your promise that I was to have eternal life? There is death for Garth if he comes here. Death, not life. And destruction for you.
Get out.
You won't wait long.
No, not long.
So that's my interpretation of it, but I do agree that, like, it's not 100% clear.
Let me just put it this way. If your goal was to explore the theme of a woman struggling with lesbianism, you drop the ball. You think she is. I think there isn't enough evidence. Either way, they drop the ball. Like, here's our theme. You fumbled your theme.
But then again, you should also be clear that it's like this film came out in the 1930s. These movies were heavily censored.
Just like
so
Pussy
even
Galore.
If it was there,
it's like, we got to hide it.
You had to hide it.
You know,
you got to hide
but
it.
They
so
hid
it's
it
not there.
so much that it's not there. So let me just, before you move on, let me just sub in, with all that being said, a more accurate interpretation of what's going on. So, as I've said before, the best way to understand vampire movies, general rule of thumb, is substitute bites for sex, bites for bangs. You get bit, you turn into one of them. You've tasted forbidden fruit. Your innocence is gone, and then you go off and spread that misery by biting others. Now you've infected them with the taste for forbidden fruit, metaphor for sex. So now they're hooked. And then this is how destruction of innocence spreads and spreads. You know, you see this in high school. One person loses their virginity, and then they're like, everybody needs to. Everybody needs to. Everybody needs to be just like me. And it's, you know, maybe you get this emotional rush from engaging in it, but then it has a tendency to lead to damage. So vampire or not, fantastical story or not, the destruction of innocence is very real, and it tends to lead to addiction. Substitute sex for booze. I like booze. I drink a lot of booze. Y'all know that. There are days where the person who drinks a lot of booze says, I wish I never would have had that first sip. Because once you break the dam, once you've tasted the forbidden fruit and you like it, then it can lead to addiction.
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
But the catch is, there are times where we overindulge in whatever the sin is. We overindulge, and then we say, you know what, I'm going to take a break, or I'm going to stop. I quit. And other people have a habit of standing in your way so that you never change, so that they never have to change. I've seen this my whole life. I've been behind the scenes of enough restaurants to know how these people get down. If you've ever been on the other side of food, you know that all those people that work in the restaurant, they all party together all the time. And the moment one of them is like, you know what, I think I want to stop working at the restaurant. And maybe I'll go back to school, and maybe I'll quit partying and drinking, and maybe I'll make a life for myself. Everybody else is the crabs in the barrel. They're like, no, we got to drag you back in, you know. And you see that in this movie where she's like, I'm going to be good now. And what does the familiar do?
He's like, no, I'm going to do everything I can to keeping you from not being a vampire.
Why are you afraid?
I'm not. I found release.
That music doesn't speak of release.
No. You're right.
That music tells of the dark, evil things, shadowy places.
Stop.
But also, he has like a stake in that game where he was promised a
stake. Bad choice of words.
Eternal life or whatever.
Long shadows on the hillsides.
Evil shadows.
No, peaceful shadows.
Dark shadows?
Yeah.
No, just regular shadows.
Which, of course, you know, the only thing I could think of in that moment was, you know, I'm thinking about going to college. An evil college?
Maybe I'd be a vet.
An evil vet?
No. Maybe like work in a petting zoo.
An evil petting zoo?
You always do that!
She says shadows, and he says evil shadows? She's like, no. And there's wings, and she said, the wings of bats?
A flutter of wings in the treetops.
The The wings of bats.
No, the wings of birds. From far off, the barking of a dog.
Barking because there are wolves about.
Silence.
He is absolutely my favorite character, though, and I think it is tied up in it. He's got a rich voice. That guy was great.
Yeah.
I adored the familiar throughout.
Sander, look at me. What do you see in my eyes?
Death.
Let's rewind then to the beginning. Speaking of characters that I adore, to Von Helsing. I can't get it out of my head that what if they changed Van to Von? What if they just changed Helsing to like HELLSING? Like it just gets dumber and dumber. Anyway, sorry. The casual nature of Van Helsing in the beginning is hilarious. It's like he's honest to a fault.
What was in there? A gentleman with a stake driven right through his heart. Oh. Do you know anything about this? Yes, I did it. Who is he in there? His name was Count Dracula. How long has he been dead? About 500 years.
Just like in the first movie, he's the same character where every time you put him in a room, he just keeps talking about this fantastical stuff and nobody believes him, but he's like, yeah, I killed this guy, you know. So it starts out in this way where you're like, well, dude, hey, idiot, you should have a lawyer present before you start talking about this. But it's interesting. It's like the last thing you expect coming from a previous horror movie is the reality of it, right? In the drama of a horror, it's like, yeah, we have to kill the monster. You don't expect in the sequel to suddenly see the guy who killed the horrific monster to suddenly be arrested for murder. So it's interesting. And you're thinking, this is kind of odd. This is interesting. I didn't expect this. And then they go to the jail. That's the first instance of it starting to stitch in this weird romantic comedy thing.
I think the thing that you're referring to as the stitching goes really happens like 20 minutes into the movie, because I think we're still handling the aftermath of Dracula at this point, right? And Von Helsing's still in the movie. He gets arrested, which first I have to say, it's like, for one, why are the cops there? Because from what I remember, they don't call the cops. They're like, we're going to go save Mina.
And they're in a private residence.
Second,
like it's Carfax Abbey is a private residence.
Carfax Abbey's across the street.
And they just come down the steps. That's like they just walk into your basement. You're like, what are you guys doing in my house?
That's all this is. It's just like, what are you guys doing here? Unless there was some hints. So there's already some like logic that's being broken there. There's a lot of logic that's being broken in this movie.
But I'm on board because it's
established.
It's the first thing that happens.
It's an interesting idea.
It's oddball.
The other problem with the beginning that I think about after I watch it, I'm like, where's Mina and Jonathan Harker? Because obviously, you know, they owe their lives to Van Helsing. So where did they go? This is like an alternate universe sequel. 20 minutes into the movie, we are, and I love this line, by the way, I have to quote this line. We're 20 minutes into the movie, then we have to meet our true protagonist of this film, which isn't Von Helsing this time, it is Dr. Jeffrey Garth. And they're talking about shooting birds, and one of my favorite lines in this movie.
There are a few birds in London I'd like to shoot, and they haven't feathers either.
And I'm like, yep, I know exactly what he means by that one.
That's a vestigial line to set up the lesbianism, because Dracula's daughter also has a couple of featherless birds she'd like to shoot.
That's when the movie turns into the 1930s rom-com, is right at that moment.
You have an appointment with Scotland Yard.
What for? I haven't killed anybody.
No, but a friend of yours has. A man named Von Helsing.
Von Helsing? Professor Von Helsing? Oh, he's in Budapest.
No, he's in London. He needs help badly. They tried to reach you here by phone yesterday and ended by my planing to Edinburgh and driving from there all night. I'm in no mood for an argument.
Whom have you decided to retain for your defense?
There is only one man who might understand. My friend Jeffrey Garth.
Well, I need Dr. Jeffrey Garth, the other protagonist of this movie, who's going to hold this film because he has star power and, because I'm old, you know, like that's how this movie reads to me.
So in that moment when it's suddenly, I need Garth, and then later he says, I specifically need you to prove that I am sane.
Do anything in the world to help you. But what?
You must convince them of my sanity.
If I do that, they'll hang you for murder.
You can't murder a man who's been dead for 5 centuries.
Talking like that won't help.
But then right after that, it's like, but they dropped the charges because the body's gone.
One thing I'm pretty sure of, they won't press the murder charge. They haven't been able to find Dracula's body.
And it just evaporates. It just
So who cares? Yeah, it's like we're going towards this interesting story. Is it going to be Dracula in court? Like Van Helsing goes to court.
Oh wait, no, it's a romantic comedy. So when they take him into the prison, though, we have two bodies in this room, and instead of seeing Van Helsing behind bars and all that, and there's some play between the cops. We have our goofy cops and Van Helsing. Instead, we have these two bodies sitting here, Dracula and Renfield, and they're just watching over them or guarding them, I guess. And then the guy goes in and the floor moves and he says it's a rat.
Oh! What is it? A rat. There's never been no rats in Whitby jail. There is now.
Immediately, because you're in a Dracula movie, you're thinking that, oh, maybe Dracula's not dead, or maybe there's something going on with that, or even later, because pretty soon after that, Dracula's daughter shows up. It's like maybe she's controlling rats to do something, and nothing happens. And then the other cop is like, rats? There are no rats. And he walks in, and the earth is moving in a way that you're like, is some freaky vampire stuff going on? And then nothing comes of it. And that's what I mean. That's where it's like there was like the vestigial elements of a Dracula script that suddenly fade into a romantic comedy where it's like, oh, there's some creepy stuff going on. Oh no, it was just rats. Well, but I thought Dracula could control rats.
Thousands of rats with their eyes blazing red, like his, only smaller. And then he held up his hand, and they all stopped.
No. We just need to we just chop the script here, put in this rom-com script,
Yeah, like I said before, they didn't have a finished script when they started this. So maybe they had an idea there, and then they didn't go with it, and then they had to change it. My other thought is that even with Werewolf in London, I do feel like you have these people that are writing these movies that tend to not, like horror is still at this moment in time not considered high art for a lot of people. No one wants to work on a horror movie. They want to work on the dramas. They want to work on the comedies. They want to work on the romance movies. And so you kind of have to shift gears. And if you're getting writers that are used to writing, and again, this is the 30s, this is the golden age of Hollywood when everyone was working inside a studio. And, the idea that your name meant something is kind of not the same as it is today. Back then, it's like you worked for the studio and you wrote the scripts. And no one was a fan of the writers or the directors. They were just like, that was their job.
Best Picture used to go to the studio that made it. Now it goes to the producer who produced it, regardless of whatever the studio is. But it used to, that's how studio driven it used to be.
Yeah, it was like you worked in a factory, and that's why it's called a production and everything else, right? So the idea to me is that you see these things when you're like, it feels like they're stitched together. Maybe, but honestly, I think you've got people that are writing scripts every day, and they have to write almost the same movie every day. There's a couple of writers attached to this besides Garrett Fort, but it could just be that, they're used to writing these melodramas and the romance movies, and they sell well. And maybe a producer's like, hey, put some melodrama in it, make it a romance so people can kind of cover all the bases.
You're kind of adding to my point, which is they just pulled some script pages out of the trash.
They did. They probably
just
did.
Slapped it on this.
But I could even see it. As just like you have all these ideas in your head and you're writing nonstop every day, and you're just like, all of a sudden the stories just kind of the ideas start seeping into.
Here's what it is. So of all the things that a Dracula sequel could have been, this is what we get. And so it's honestly not the worst thing ever. I actually like the characters. I appreciate all these characters, but it's just very weird that this is what we got.
Yeah, it's weirder when you think that you have Lugosi on contract. He's in the other room right now. Like, why can't you just pull him and be like, hey, we're going to bring Dracula back from the dead? And I think even at this point, they're like, well, he died. And you're like, it's a fucking movie. Who cares? Yeah. Did he die? Like they could have made a movie, and I think my point earlier, I think I said this, but I think it makes sense to me that I wish the real story was Van Helsing was the main character of this movie, or you could have brought back Jonathan Harker and Mina. There's only a couple years prior, they could have brought those characters back and done something with that, but maybe I don't know if it was a rights issue. I don't know what the reasoning was, but I wish they had in some form or fashion, or at least acknowledged their characters, because this story seems so it's so bizarre to just all of a sudden 180-degree pivot, forget all of the other main characters from the other story, only use one of the main characters, and all of a sudden it's this other completely different take on the Dracula stuff. It still works, but it's weird. It's weird.
Let's get further into the meat of the story. Once Dracula's daughter steals the body of her father, she burns him, and she does this weird ritual to release his spirit, and there's this weird contradiction that occurs, because she immediately says, the spell is broken.
Free forever. Do you understand what that means, Sander? Free to live as a woman. Free to take my place in the bright world of the living, instead of among the shadows of the dead.
Perhaps.
Basically, I'm a free woman now, and I can do whatever I want. I'm out of the metaphysical, the spiritual control of my father, because he's gone now.
Sure.
And here's the thing. So she says that, but then right away, during the ritual, she's hiding herself as she's using a cross to do it. So she's hiding from crosses. Right after that, she says, we need to get out of here before the sun comes up.
Quick. We must be in London before dawn.
She's still biting people. It's this weird thing where for some reason she thinks the curse is gone, but it's not, because she still has the bloodlust. And then, I guess she still has fangs because they keep finding the distinct bite marks. Basically, what I'm getting at is that's where it's kind of muddy.
I'm picking up what you're throwing down, because tons of other reviews we've talked about, horror films have to have rules, or at least acknowledge how
you
a thing
can't just
works,
turn
right?
off the curse.
And if we've already established a lot of rules, but by the way, this movie, if you've seen Dracula, you know all the rules already. Like they really are great at prompting you, and you already know, like, oh yeah, there's a reason why she doesn't have mirrors.
You know, this is the first woman's flat I've been in that didn't have at least 20 mirrors in it.
There's a reason why she can't come out at night. There's a reason why, another line I want to pull out. She says,
Sherry, Maria?
Thank you. I never drink wine.
Like little callbacks to the first movie. There's all that stuff's in there.
There's a whole bunch of little callbacks.
The strength of the vampire is that people will not believe in him.
The strength of the vampire, Sir Basil, lies in the fact that he is unbelievable.
The superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Who can define the boundary line between the superstition of yesterday and the scientific fact of tomorrow?
The room with the doctors looking at the patient with holes in their neck. So yeah, they're doing all these callbacks to the first movie for sure.
So this movie acknowledges the rules of the vampire stuff that was established in the first movie, at least. The problem is, and this is an easy rewrite, you just need the scene where she does the ritual and she's like, I'm free. And then the sun comes up and then her skin starts to burn. She's like, crap, I'm not free. Like, that's what you needed. You just needed the scene where she thought that she was free, and then it turns out it didn't work. And then she's like...
That is option A.
Like,
option B would be to emphasize the meaning, the themes that I already laid out. Basically how, let's say the curse is broken, because we're seeing her do a ritual. And also, the idea that you kill the father of all of this darkness. And I mean, a lot of vampire stories will do that, where you kill Dracula and the curse is broken, right? It's like suddenly everybody is free of this thing.
Right.
Which we actually did see in the first movie with Mina.
Mina!
Option A is to do what you did, where it didn't work. She's still a vampire. Option B is she is free of the, let's call it the virus, the actual thing that would make the daylight burn her skin or make, garlic smell bad.
Okay.
And yet she still has the taste of flesh, right? Like, let me put it this way. There are famous cases of people who have had to resort to cannibalism, and then they're changed forever. It's not to say that some people taste human flesh and then they have an appetite for it forever and they keep eating people. But that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that what if that was her character, that the spell was broken, but she still has this thing about her where she's like, I still have this bloodlust that I can't get rid of. And then the psychiatrist is like, you a freaky bitch, but I'll help you. And trying to help her but like she's kind of, it's like once the damage is done, like the theme would be that once the damage is done,
I
you
get
can't
what you're saying.
undo the damage.
I'm picking up what you're saying. I do wonder if that was the intention behind our favorite scene, Evil Shadows, Wings of Bats, because when you watch that scene, you're like, okay, it's after she's done the ritual, and then she's playing the piano and she's happy and she's like, oh, I'm free of the evil shadows and all this stuff, but then the scene kind of shifts into like, well, now you got to go out and feed, bitch, you know? And I'm thinking like, well, based off what you're saying, it's like, well, it seems like maybe they were going that direction and they decided not to for some reason.
Yeah. Or even the painting. She's like, I need to feed in order to be inspired in my painting. Because you see her paintings throughout the movie and they're very dark and scary and cool. They look like really great paintings, but it's like she's like, the spell's broken, but then she's trying to paint and nothing happens. So she's like, I need you to go get me some young blood. Why? I can't perform without blood, you know? So it's like you get rid of the metaphysical vampirism, but it's like she's still damaged and she's wrestling with that. Now, the movie doesn't ever give any kind of motivation for her to be good, which I don't necessarily need, but I greatly desire. I would love to know why she wants to be good.
Even if it was at the end of the movie when we're like, well, like they're having the confrontation and she reveals why she's still under the spell, at least it would have made a little more understanding of the title of the movie, because Dracula's daughter, it's like, wait, he had daughters? We know he had concubines and brides because we see that in the last movie.
And she talks about her mom. Like she talks about her mom in this loving way.
Song my mother once sang to me long, long ago, rocking me to sleep as she sang in the twilight.
She never talks about her dad, right? Like she doesn't say anything about what it was like to grow up as
it's like,
Dracula's
but the question
daughter,
is like,
you know?
what,
like, I want to know what that was like.
We just need some scene that would kind of link that is. At least a character moment to reveal like what it was like for her. I mean, we have a psychologist in this movie. And like, what if the movie was instead the more interesting movie that isn't this film? What if it wasn't a bunch of parties and it wasn't a love triangle movie, and instead it was the psychiatrist who has to be the therapist to the vampire, right? And then like he's like sitting down with her and he's like, tell me about your home life. Tell me about your family. What was that like? You know, and then maybe we get these crazy flashbacks, and then Lugosi can come back, and we actually see Lugosi and like the night and make it spooky. You know, like a cool flashback like we got in The Mummy.
Dracula seeing a psychiatrist is a comedy bit, but you could make it work.
You could make it work. I think if you made it serious and then like you see some horrors, you know, you could go there. I think it would work.
Yeah, we saw that in Renfield, this latest iteration of a Dracula spinoff, this Renfield movie that we covered at some point in 2023, where it's like Dracula goes to an AA meeting, basically.
I am Dracula.
Okay, obviously we're dealing with a little bit more than just narcissism here.
It's a comedy bit, but you could pull it off here with the daughter of Dracula dealing with her daddy issues. Could be, you know, if not funny, it could be interesting.
You could go there, but I mean, the movie decides this movie, because you wanted to get into the meat and bones of this movie. I think the other major part, and you keep referring to it, is the love triangle. Not even a love, it's like a love square, kind of. Garth is obsessed with the Countess, right? The Countess is interested, but it seems like she's mainly interested because she thinks he can cure her.
I'm interested in what you've been saying, Mr. Garth. I'm wondering if we might talk about it one evening soon. Just you and I.
I'd like to. Very much.
Yeah, I don't think Garth is obsessed with her. I think Garth is more just, he seems very professional.
I ask you here tonight because I need your help.
As a psychiatrist?
As a man of strength and courage.
Well, I'm afraid that places me at a disadvantage.
Do you believe that the dead can influence the living?
Well, in what way?
Could you conceive of a superhuman mentality influencing someone from the other side of death?
No.
There is such a one.
Mm-hmm. Well, go on.
Something that reaches out from beyond the grave and fills me with horrible impulses.
Well, how can I help you?
Use my brain, my will for an instrument as he has used them, but for release.
Your mind has the power to do that. Your strength lies within yourself. Put it to a test.
A test?
Now, for example, you know what we do with alcoholics? We give them liquor, Make them sit for hours alone without touching it. Make them meet their craving. Beat it back. That is, if they have the will to be free.
I have.
Then do this. The next time you feel this influence, don't avoid it. Meet it. Fight it. Score the first victory. That's the secret.
Life against death. The strength of a human mind against the powers of darkness.
I'll help you.
You must. You must.
He's interested in her.
He's interested, but
I would
he's
say,
not chasing.
I would say he's interested in her. I disagree because if you watch some of those scenes, it definitely reads like he's more than willing to help her out in a way that's like, dude, you're only trying to get some if you're helping her out in that regard.
In the beginning, yeah, and then of course that all changes once he figures out who she really is.
You know that I've just come from the bedside of the girl you brought here last night? Well, she's dead.
What a pity. There isn't anything I won't do now to enlist your aid in freeing me of the curse of the Draculas.
Dracula's?
Yes. I am Dracula's daughter.
Garth's interested in her. She's interested in, she's in vampirism. Depending on what you're reading, because I could see it where you're like, maybe she's interested in the girlfriend.
His assistant, yeah.
But again, the movie's a little muddy and they had to censor things. There might be something there where they were trying to do this love triangle. But really, again, the movie's kind of muddy.
And then at the end, the Countess tries to go down on her. Literally, she's like going down on her.
Then also in the mix of this, you have the familiar who's obviously jealous. It's almost like you've got these two that are having some kind of relationship. Meanwhile, their other significant others are jealous. So again, this is a classic romance
It's the
movie,
sequel to Dracula.
It's vampires.
And it's this weird...
It's not...
rom-com.
Exactly.
Rom dramedy.
And it's not a bad, that's the thing. It's like, I'm watching this movie and I'm like, this isn't a bad movie.
I like the characters. I appreciate the characters, so.
I don't hate this.
So yeah, it's similar to The Mummy where it's like, is this a horror movie? I guess it has some horrific elements, this poor girl who's obviously traumatized. I kind of like the hypnosis scene with the machine and the lights in her eyes.
You must remember.
Let go of my arm. You're hurting me.
It's pretty clear from what we're saying that it cannot go above Dracula because Dracula is a Dracula movie, and this is a rom-com with a vampire in it.
Dracula Light. This is a rom-com with vampire. So I do feel like we are in our bottom three here. But I will say the things that I think the last movie we did, Werewolf in London, I think the biggest problem with that was that there was just a lot of things that just didn't add up and didn't make sense, and the character motivations were all over the place.
Yeah, like Yogami, what are you trying to do? What is Yogami trying to accomplish? It's like, we need to save London, but let me destroy the flower that will save London. Like, that movie is...
It's messy.
It's absolutely above or below Werewolf, and the more I think about Werewolf, I just remember hating it, whereas watching this movie and appreciating the characters and how clean the plot is, there really isn't any filler. As much as sometimes you're sitting there going, why am I watching a rom-com dramedy type of thing? What's happening?
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Janet, I assure you
Quiet. There. Stout fella.
Who's this?
Perfect.
Why didn't you tie it this way last night? Janet? Janet!
I'm still kind of enjoying the characters that I'm hanging out with. So it's certainly better than The Mummy.
Yeah. And all the characters' motivations, I think, are much clearer in this movie.
Yeah, just all in all, the plot is, you follow it from A to Z very simply, whereas it doesn't make sense in Werewolf.
There are the caveats of things, I think, because it's a sequel and not the first. I think there are caveats where you and I are like, I'm a little frustrated that Van Helsing is taking a back seat to some Joe Schmo that he just pulled out of his hat, and it's basically a romance story where the assistant's just messing with her boss, but, they're going to end up together at some point.
Telephone for him.
In the hall, Dr. Garth.
Well, who is this? What do you want?
Please come right away. This is the zoo speaking.
The what? The zoo?
Yeah, one of our elephants is seeing pink men.
All right, now listen to me, Janet. This has gone far enough. Well, there's nothing funny about it. I'm in the midst of a very serious... Hello?
You're like, this is adorable, but why is this in a Dracula sequel?
That's cute. these horror films, I think today there are a lot of horror fans that would be like, I don't like these movies. They're not scary. There's no slasher element to them. You're like, great. But these movies are a lot more about mood and atmosphere than anything else. And I do feel like there are scenes that bring that, but like it does take a back seat.
And we have this long setup in Dracula where we're in Transylvania and then we quickly transition to London and the rest of the stories in London. And it has its own fun, classic Dracula horror moments there. And then here it's the reverse where it starts in London, literally just like exactly where we left off. It's in London for most of the movie. And then towards the end, we transition to Transylvania and we're only there for a brief time.
The castle! Dracula!
He's come back!
It's the same thing we've been talking about with all these movies. It's some creepy locations and then high-class society parties. And the moment that they cut to a high-class society party and the Countess randomly shows up, I'm like, no, stop it.
My dear, how sweet of you to come.
Don't you know it's very rude to stare at strangers?
Thought I've gotten rid of you for a while.
Not while there's a dangerous-looking brunette like that around.
You know, my guests are dying to meet you.
Stop doing this, but it's like, whatever. It's like, I guess it's what they did back then.
It's cheaper to do people talking in rooms than have crazy action scene and dark, spooky scenes.
Yeah, so Garth shows up at the castle, and it's the same, it's a stairwell with the spider webs.
That's what I thought was cool.
It's cool, but we want more of that.
Right. I appreciated the fact that and I could be wrong, I did appreciate the fact that I think that's the exact same set that they used in the 31 film.
If not, they replicated it perfectly.
5 years removed from that. But yes, that was cool. I liked that, even down to the spider web that he crosses. So if you've seen Dracula, you're like, ah!
It's hardly worth going into The Mummy. We've beaten that horse to death. Just all the issues there. I'll just leave that alone. I think it's easily better than The Mummy. Again, this plot is pretty, like we said, it's pretty straightforward and has no filler. And again, psychiatrist, the assistant, Dracula's daughter, and the familiar. Again, I adore the familiar. And then, of course, I love Van Helsing, even if we don't get enough of him. But yeah, unexpected that the sequel to Dracula would be something like this. But it is a clean movie. It flows.
It's not muddy. There's not weird motivations outside of maybe the lesbian censorship stuff kind of messes up with maybe what they were trying to do.
Yeah. So again, Werewolf is kind of a mess and is really just a copy paste of Invisible Man without rising up to that level at all. And then again, same thing with the endings. Every single one of the endings, I've been saying it every time. Every ending is kind of just like zoot, and everything's just kind of blah, burning the scroll out of nowhere and just shooting the werewolf, just kind of lackluster. But at least here they set up the familiar the entire time. And so when he caps her, as lackluster as all these endings have been, it's like this one, at least you kind of saw the breadcrumbs of it.
Janet, open your eyes.
Oh, Jeffrey.
There's your vampire, Sir Basil. The arrow. A wooden shaft through her heart, just as I drove the stake through his.
The woman is beautiful.
She was beautiful when she died, 100 years ago.
It makes sense more and more that even though this is kind of a weird choice for the Dracula sequel, and of all the infinite possibilities of things you could do, this is what they did, but it's still not as good as Dracula, but it's a better movie than Werewolf of London in my book. Again, Werewolf of London, I was like, I hate this movie. I don't hate this movie, even though I think it could have been better, of course.
No. I agree, but here's my take. And you're going to be we can't do that.
No,
but I'm
you can't split them up.
Here's what I think.
You're going to split them up? Why?
I think it has to go next to her dad. I think it has to beat Spanish Dracula. And really, when it comes down to it, think about the performances in Spanish Dracula. I enjoy most of the performances in this movie over the Spanish Dracula film. I also think the Spanish Dracula film kind of overstays its welcome at times. That movie's like 90 minutes long versus the 70-minute that is just clean. And I think this movie just very narrowly beats Spanish Dracula. That's where I'd put it. I'd put it right above Spanish Dracula.
It doesn't make any logical sense to me.
And all the Dracula movies, they're all like
and Spanish
they're
Dracula.
all like
doesn't
together. It does when you think of these two, like Spanish Dracula. You can't just think of Spanish Dracula and Dracula as the same movie. Yeah, maybe their stories are the same, but we did realize that like there are different directors and there are different performances. And we both agreed that the performance of Dracula in the Spanish version is far weaker, far weaker than Bela Lugosi.
That was the reason to put it above Spanish Dracula.
Sure, but I think I find this more enjoyable to watch overall than I do with Spanish Dracula. Spanish Dracula is fine, but I will say it does overstays its welcome a little bit. There is one thing that they add that I was like, okay, I do like that they went back, they added them killing
Lucy.
I do love that they actually put that back in the film where they go to kill Lucy. I'm like, yeah, that's great. But overall, I'm like thinking between the two movies, and I'm like, I do feel like there should be somebody dividing these two, and I do think it's Dracula's daughter. So I do agree with you. I think it's better than Werewolf.
My only problem with that is that there are elements of Spanish Dracula that do make me think that it's better than Dracula. What that meant when we covered it was basically that Spanish Dracula almost feels like the extended cut, so it kind of fills in some gaps. But ultimately we said, you can't take it away from Bela Lugosi.
Sure.
Like when your main character is that much better than the other actor portraying the main character, because at that point it's like, who cares if it's a little more fleshed out? Because remember, it's like 30 minutes longer or something like that. Who cares if it's a little more fleshed out when Dracula is just like Bela Lugosi is just a master next to this clown playing Spanish Dracula.
Much better.
That's my only concern, is that putting this above it negates the fact that just overall, just Dracula, regardless of Bela Lugosi or anyone else, that story is so much more on point than this story as far as vampires go. Again, Dracula is about the tall, dark, handsome, rich men that create harems of women and therefore destroy families. Dracula's daughter pales in comparison, and yes, that is a vampire pun. That's where I can't logically split up Dracula and Spanish Dracula, because they are the same story, but then in the nitty-gritty of editing and Bela Lugosi,
I am just in between the internal and external of both of these movies, and I feel like the internal and the external for this movie, the internal works, but it's not superior. But I think the external is much better than the external of Spanish Dracula. So the internal being like a lot of times you and I will argue about a movie. We might be arguing about the meaning behind the movie. We might be arguing the story of the movie, the plot of the movie. And sometimes like an internal thing to argue would be like Werewolf in London, where we're like, oh, well, the one character is just, what is he trying to do? He's very confusing for the rest of the plot. He doesn't streamline anything. It just makes it more confusing. It's almost trying to make it more complicated, but in a good way, but it doesn't work. That would be like an internal thing, like in especially what you're talking about with the Dracula films. They both have the same internal story structure, but there are some things where, again, when you're extending pieces of the film and adding more little things here and there, sometimes that can weigh in on the movie. The external being, and I think this is kind of goes back to the thing that you hate to argue, the cinematography. And I'm not even arguing the cinematography here between Spanish Dracula and Dracula's daughter. That's not really where I'm coming with this. But I think the external can also be the performances. It can also be the director's decisions on where he's going to shoot these things. And I think the performances here are much stronger overall. Like I'm more engaged with the material, at least because you have a little bit more. There's just more going on. There's just something a little bit more tangible with me getting. And easily it could just be the translation too. It's like Spanish to English. I'm more engaged with the English because I know English, that kind of thing. It could be that too.
Again, what I suffer from is like, they're not carbon copies of each other, but it's still such a more engaging story than this oddball spin-off.
Let me put it this way. I'll succeed. Succeed, not what I'm saying. Is that what I'm saying? Succeed? No. Concede. Thank you. Concede. I will concede just on the simple fact that I'm like, well, okay, at least the internals are kind of the same. And one is more of a vampire movie. The other more is a romantic comedy, right? So I'll give you that. But there is a part of me that's like, if we were tier listing these, which we don't do that on this channel, I would probably put these in the same tier with Spanish Dracula. Like these movies, I think would be in the same tier for me. And I would put Dracula above both of those movies. But that's where I'm at. That's in my head. But I do think it works really well that it is below. It's still in the Dracula family, like putting it above Werewolf and next to Dracula. I will still go there. I'll be like, yeah, that works.
Part of me is tempted. Part of me is like, oh yeah, it's kind of a cool idea to split up Dracula and Spanish Dracula, but the other part of me is like, I almost can't in good conscience do that because they're attached. They're just attached at the hip. Had Spanish Dracula had a more competent Dracula, then it would have beaten Dracula. The movie is still pretty awesome. And so that's what I mean. It's like all the other stuff in the movie is better than Dracula, except for that title character. So we put American Dracula above it, and that's a good call because he's that good. But that's not enough of a reason for me to put Dracula's Daughter above it just because of that title character, when the rest of the story is still consistent, you know?
I have shaken you to your core by suggesting you're like, what? Blasphemy.
Yeah, because I just can't wrap my head around splitting them up because it's like it's almost as if you can only compare them to each other because, you know, like I can't do it. I can't. But above Werewolf,
but you must.
Like above Werewolf makes total sense. Now, if you were saying above or below Dracula itself, that I could wrap my head around that more. But splitting up Dracula and Spanish Dracula is a tough prospect because they're like attached at the hip.
Dracula, he's a threat. Like Van Helsing is cautious of him. We're all worried about him. We're all concerned that he is going to do something evil. We know he's doing stuff evil. It is displayed to us, and like he is sucking the blood of Lucy every night and doing all these horrible things.
There's a confrontation. The best scenes of the movie are the confrontation between him and Van Helsing, as rudimentary as they are.
Yeah.
The best moment that you get of that in this movie is when she's propositioning him at the end, and I love the delivery of him saying,
"Your life for hers."
What are you talking about?
Remain here.
Remain?
Yes, with me among the undead. One yourself, as only I can make that possible. Never to know death as men know it.
You're insane.
You're insane. You know, like it's almost modern in a sense, the way he delivers that.
Yeah.
But to your point, yeah, the threat is just kind of like...
There's no threat, but like the film almost reads like she's the other protagonist in this movie. Like, because she does have a foil, that is her familiar, who's just constantly goading her and being like, you gotta... Dark shadows, you know, wings with bats.
I'm going to be a good girl.
You know, wings of bats.
I just want to be a normal girl.
And it's like, and it's also weird, an evil girl. It's funny though, because it does feel like in the other film, the subordinate was Renfield, the familiar. But in this film,
he dominates her.
He's almost like...
The familiar is dominant of the vampire, which is interesting.
It's weird, but it's like kind of what you're talking about. But I think it works for the story, because if this is a story about her trying to be not a vampire, right? That's what the story is, and you're aligning with what the analogy that you're bringing up about like the friends that are like, no, you want to drink, you want to come back to us, you want to smoke the drugs.
Don't try to improve your life, because now you're making me think that I have to.
I don't want you to, because if you do it, then I won't have a drinking buddy. Then that character works really well in that context. So overall, this movie works, and I like this movie. It's just... yeah. It's not what you're wanting out of a monster movie. So then in that regard, I'll be like, okay, it's below Spanish Dracula. But I'm really tempted to be like,
it's like, do you ever
better than Spanish Dracula?
Did you ever see that baby?
I'm really tempted.
Remember those babies who like they're Siamese twins and they're attached at the head? That's how I see Dracula and Spanish Dracula. I'm just like, can't separate these two. Again, it's the Spanish Dracula is this forgotten masterpiece. It's like, no, the lead actor didn't understand the role. You know,
that's the twin brother that wasn't famous. Like, that's what this movie is. It's the unfamous twin brother that is
again
also talented,
scary,
just
and he's
not
like,
as talented.
I'm like, dude, get out of here.
I don't know.
Get out of here. Try to be classy like Bella, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so, okay, cool. Let's activate the lightning. Okay, Dracula's Daughter, number 6. Yeah, we got a toast to
Van Helsing. Edward Van Sloan.
How do you do?
He was kind of typecasted in these like mentor roles. And I mean, we saw him in Dracula, where we first saw him. He comes back in Frankenstein, plays another mentor role. And then again, another mentor role in The Mummy. So he was in like 3 of these movies back to back to back. And then it's nice to finally have him back in the role that he began in this series. So.
And as much as this movie should have been than his movie. He's still great. Like, he's still just a scene stealer.
Gone? Who's gone? Countess Aleska. Dracula's daughter.
Dracula's daughter?
And again, he cracks me up how he's honest to a fault throughout both of these Dracula movies.
The undead. Undead? Creatures who have never died, who prolong their unnatural lives by draining the blood of the living. At night they leave their graves and roam abroad like wolves, seeking their prey. When daylight comes, they must return to their graves or die.
And this Count Dracula is one of those fabulous creatures? Is that what you expect me to believe?
Yes, yes. He came to England from his ancient castle in Transylvania, bringing with him boxes of earth from his native grave. Using Carfax Abbey as his base, he descended upon London for fresh victims. There were many mysterious attacks, each person found drained of blood. I was able to trace those attacks to their source, locate Dracula's hiding place, and drive that stake through his heart.
Still my favorite, one of my favorite moments so far in this series is just how he just has two, like, he's got like two things. He's got like a little beaker, and he just pours a little bit of liquid into it, and he just goes, "Yep, vampires." It's just so dumb. It's hilarious. You know, it's just, oh, how'd you figure that out? Science.
That's what I thought.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we're dealing with vampires.
It would be well for you to return to your own country. I prefer to remain and protect those whom you would destroy.
He's great.
That's what it is, bro.
Classic. He's classy. To Mr. Edward Van, not Von Sloan. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. He's in the beginning of the movie.
Okay.
So I think you wanted that for the edit or whatever, right?
This is
Just to know.
me
Okay,
talking
cool.
to my future self.
Future self.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Go make a sandwich for yourself, sweet cheeks. Anyway,